Okay, everybody, listen up. I've got great news, all right? Really great news, all right? I managed to find out what exactly is Oda's plan for Usopp during the Elbaph arc, all right? I managed to find out from Oda personally what he plans on doing for Usopp in terms of giving him a great power-up, all right? What exactly is Oda planning? I've got the word, all right? And I'm here to tell you exactly what it is, all right? But listen, you need to keep it quiet, all right? I promised Oda I wasn't going to tell anybody. So you guys need to keep this a secret, all right? Please, whatever you do, don't let him know that I'm telling you this, all right? No, I'm being serious. No, I'm not Usopping here, all right? I'm literally telling you the truth. I managed to find out exactly what Oda is planning for Usopp, and I'm here to tell you it. Don't tell me to stop Usopping. I'm not Usopping, all right? I'm literally being serious, all right? You know what? That's on you, right? If you don't want to believe me, fine, all right? Feel free to go watch something else, right? But I'm here to tell you exactly what it is, right? And trust me, you are going to be amazed, all right? Now, let's get into the video, shall we? Pretend you didn't see that. You didn't see nothing. All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Clifford, and let's get into today's video. So, yes, oddly enough, and strangely enough, I'm actually going to be doing a video on Usopp. I've never really done a video on Usopp. I've mostly done so many videos on Nami, quite a few on Carrot, Yamato, Vivi, Straw Hats in general, but never really any video on mostly the Straw Hats. I really do need to start doing other videos on them, like that. You know, really get into it, okay? So, yeah, for the strange heck reason, this is going to be an Usopp video where I'm going to be going over a possible idea on things that I could actually see occurring for Usopp in terms of battle-wise power. And, you know, the little slingshot here, is probably the best thing I can do for a good reference for Usopp. And, you know, a hammer. This will come up later in the... Well, you'll find out what the hammer's for a little bit later and stuff like that. But trust me, it's there for a reason, alright? So, let's get into it, okay? Hey everybody, my name is Clifford. Let's get into today's video, alright? So, yes, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be going over some possible ideas on things that I could actually see happening or something that might actually work in terms of, like, you know, giving Usopp a great power-up. Now, there are plenty of good reasons on why a lot of people out there actually believe that we are going to get a power-up for Usopp in this arc, okay? We didn't really get so much of a power-up in any of the previous arcs for Usopp in general, and when it comes to Elbaph, Elbaph is really... In terms of, like, how it's going to that, a lot of people out there really want Elbaph to be a really good focus for Usopp, right? Especially when you look at so many things that Usopp has basically been dreaming of this entire time, right? Literally, the land of the giants is literally like a dream place for him to go, right? I mean, ever since he learned about it from Dorian and Broggy when they first met on Little Gardens like that, Usopp has always dreamed of actually going there to meet the giants and meet Elbaph, and that really stems from the whole general idea on how he views the giants, like how he sees them as the perfect idea of what a warrior should be, right? Usopp's whole goal and dream is basically become a brave warrior of the sea, and yet he sees the giants as a stepping stone for that, right? He basically sees the giants as a moral idea for his own moral role itself to basically become a brave warrior of the sea. And the giants themselves are basically like an inspiration for him for that. He basically views them as the ones who basically are true warriors of the sea, like really true brave warriors in that sense, okay? So the fact that Usopp himself is literally dreamt to be going here as much as possible and is determined to basically become a brave warrior of the sea, pretty much just like how the giants are very brave warriors in that sense, you can see why Oda should basically be giving Usopp a very great power-up for this arc. Now, whatever that power might be and how it might actually work is really hard to say, but let's actually just go over a few things, and we might be able to understand why this could actually work in general and how it could actually work in Usopp's favor for that regards, okay? Now, when it comes to Usopp's techniques and battle lines like that, Usopp is more of like the more like the tactician kind of person like that, one who's willing to think ahead or think more logically in how a plan or battle should actually be done on. Where we're looking at Luffy in that regards, Luffy is more like the kind of person who just like keeps striking until he managed to land a blow. Usopp, while he is more of the coward person like that, when it comes to him actually having to fight, he is a little bit more wise in the terms of, like, you know, what he actually needs to do, right? Like, especially when most of the opponents that he'll face, Usopp can't really take him down in like a direct approach, right? He literally has to actually think outside the box and really think very clearly on how he can actually win in this scenario, right? So when it comes to Usopp, techniques and his old weapons, like his old weaponry, his his whole weapon that he uses, right? He mostly relies on like a slingshot kind of thing, right? Which he refers to as his Black Kabuto. Now, his slingshot has actually just changed designs throughout the entire series. His current right now is called the Black Kabuto, or basically the Kuro Kabuto. And that's his whole main thing that he actually uses. Now, he does have other utensils and other varieties of things that he actually uses and stuff like that. He has like this whole hammer technique thing that he uses and stuff like that. And a lot of people actually think that he'll actually get another hammer within the story, and it might actually be more of a significant power-up in that regards, right? I mean, we are in Elbaph, and Elbaph is taken from Norse mythology, and if you're familiar with characters like Thor in Norse mythology and this whole hammer Mjolnir, you quite understand why this could be a significant thing. And a lot of people actually believe that Usopp is actually going to lift Thor's hammer, right? They're literally going to get a version of Thor's hammer. However, I will say this, and I mentioned this before in one of my previous videos, while I can see a general idea and a good, unique thing here for Usopp to actually lift Thor's hammer without, in some crazy scenario, if Thor's hammer is actually real and exists, I don't think it's actually going to be the case for Usopp to actually, keep it, alright? Like, lifting it for one scenario is one thing, but actually managing to keep it, I'm not sure, because you would think that would be more of a valuable treasure for the Elbaph giants in general, so letting them actually, Usopp be taking it just because he's able to lift it, I'm not so sure about that, alright? And then it could be possible that this whole hammer scenario might just be like a whole new version of like a hammer technique that he has that he's never actually used before, right? So that's very well possible, right? But when it comes to Usopp, he's literally the sniper of the crew, so you would imagine the best thing for him to actually do is really focus more on sniping in general. Like, while the hammer and other stuff he uses are like very well things that he manages to use for certain scenarios in order to help get out of a certain situation or help him in that moment, really when it comes down to his core character, his sniping skills are really what should be aiming for the best, right? Like, literally having a way to make his sniping skills much better, or is probably a little bit more of a better focus here, right? Especially if you look at the general idea of him actually going up against Van Augur, or as a possible fight with him between the Blackbeard Pirates, really aiming for something to help his improvement on getting his skill in terms of like targeting and sniping much better, or even if he doesn't have authorization in hockey in that regard, doing something to help increase that or something to help benefit might actually be more of the best aim for that. And I'm not the only person out there who literally thinks that Usopp really needs to have something to really increase his his whole targeting situation, like his whole sniping skills much better, right? And really, I think that should be very interesting here. All right. So I did write down some very unique ideas, and I'm going to go over these things in general, and I'm going to basically explain how they can actually work and why they might actually be important here, all right? All right. So let's first start off with this, all right? One thing to actually look at in general that I think could be very interesting here is to go with like this Bakken So kind of thing, right? So to basically explain here, it's like that with Usopp's Kuro Kabuto thing, there is like this little seed thing that when doused with water and like that, it becomes like this carnivorous plant thing called the Bakken So, which literally translates into chopping grass. Basically, this little plant monster thing can basically eat up rocks and stuff like that, and basically shoot out the rocks as its ammunition for like a target kind of thing, right? And one interesting scenario here is that imagine if we get like a scenario or a possibility to state what if, and just saying as what if, this little plant creature here actually manages to get like a soul in it, just like Nami does with her climate tech, having Zeus inside it, okay? Now, there are a few questions to basically ask and things to basically consider on how this could actually work and why it could actually be significantly important here, okay? And who could actually be the soul that would actually go inside there, okay? Well, one thing to consider here is this, right? So while most of the fan base and for many people out there can basically assume that Big Mom is dead, all right? However, Oda has basically left it up to chance that she could be alive, but it's hard to necessarily say, all right? We do know for a fact that, there was the moment where he did have Pudding basically state, hey, if Big Mom is alive, you guys are in so much trouble, she manages to catch you. So maybe that's something to actually throw in there, that he plans on using Big Mom. And we do know that Big Mom did have a very significant part in the whole Elbaph thing and how the whole events unfold, having the Giants hate Big Mom, all right? So, I could actually see a very good scenario here to why would it make sense for Big Mom to actually return and actually become a big focus in that moment here, okay? Now, Another thing to actually point out here is that if Big Mom is alive, we still don't know the general idea and concept of, if these whole homies actually manage to survive when the previous user or the user of the Devil Fruit actually dies or fades away, right? So if Big Mom is alive, then that basically might even indicate that, these homies that are basically created from her powers actually do manage to, fade away if she dies. However, if she is alive, then the homies actually getting to live makes more sense. Of course, it could also be possible that, even if the user of the Devil Fruit actually dies, the homies actually get to manage to live on, regardless of the powers of the Devil Fruit themselves, right? It's kind of like a scenario with Hancock's Devil Fruit, where it was basically mentioned that even if Hancock manages to turn people to stone, and like if she dies, the next user of the Devil Fruit will not be able to reverse what has done, right? And they stay stone forever unless that user actually manages to unturn them themselves, right? So one unique scenario here that could actually be more interesting here is that if there was a soul that would really be more beneficial for that, something to really work here, I think going for someone like Pandora would actually be more interesting here, right? Pandora is basically a flame homie, pretty much just like Prometheus, that was created by Mother Caramel, right? Mother Caramel basically created these flame things. When Big Mom was a child, she went on a rampage and stuff like that, and ended up like burning down parts of the Elbaph village and stuff like that. Mother Caramel managed to actually create a homie, and this homie was called Pandora, right? Now, we don't know what basically happened to Pandora, or where she is, or even what she's up to, even if she is alive. So, if that's the case, and Pandora is alive, I can actually see a very unique scenario here, to where if something actually occurs, to where Pandora's soul is basically ripped from her previous thing, and actually manages to fuse with Usopp's Kabuto in that regards, or maybe that little plant creature, that might be more significant. It might actually be a little bit more interesting in that regards, right? And there are some things to actually consider here and how this could actually be more helpful and a little bit more interesting, right? Because this little plant thing has an actual more of a living soul in it, it has more of a general idea to think for itself and understand more of a unique situation, right? Pretty much just like how Zeus itself helps Nami's climate attack techniques a little bit more focused here, because since he is more of a sentient living cloud, he can literally focus the general ideas and control his targets much more efficiently, all right? Not only making Nami's in-range attacks, but also helping with long-range attacks even much better here, okay? And that might actually be more significant for Usopp in this regards, because it's this little plant thing, and Usopp being more of a sniping thing, like a sniper, or this little fire flaming plant creature, or might actually help Usopp in that regards, because since it's a living sentient, it might actually be able to help more of a targeting range. It might actually be able to help lay out a general focus and more of a straight more of not just a straight target, but more of this way, that way, this way, that way, this way, that way, that way, bam! Something like that, right? Something to really help aim more striking, all right? And other things to actually consider here is, basically this, right? Like, now, how exactly could this actually work here, right? Well, the scenario is basically how it could actually work in that regard, right? If Big Mom was not able to come to the story, but that's still what Oda's planning on doing, you might be able to do something with Lilith in that regards, right? Now, we do know for a fact that, Vegapunk has managed to figure out this whole lineage thing with the Devil Fruits and actually managed to make copies of them in general, right? So, maybe there's a scenario here where we finally get a reveal, or maybe Lilith actually managed to create a copy of Big Mom's Devil Fruit here, right? And some people might be asking, how would he even be able to do that all right? Well, we know it's basically to explain like this, right? Even though it's basically stated that Big Mom has tough skin and stuff like that, pretty much just like Kaido, but we do know for a fact that Vegapunk himself actually managed to get a lineage from Kaido, right? That's how he was able to sort of make the whole Devil Fruit at Momo 8, even though it was a failed one, he still managed to actually create it, okay? So I can actually see a scenario in that as well. However, there's also another possibility, is that maybe, just maybe, throughout the entire generations, the world government has always been trying to get blood samples from people like that. So maybe they have a blood sample of a previous user of the this whole soulful fruit, like Mother Caramel, and maybe that's how the Devil Fruit could actually be made and created, right? And then because of that, maybe taking Pandora from her previous soul and actually fusing it into something else can actually work in that regards, right? Now, one thing to actually point out here is that it was basically stated that Big Mom cannot actually put her the souls into another living being, all right? However, this does not necessarily count for plants in that regards, even though plants are actual living things, but they're not the same living things as like a human or an animal in that regards, right? So we do know for a fact that she can put these souls in like plants and stuff like that, like trees. So I can actually see this whole little plant chopping thing becoming part of a soul to give it more of significance here, all right? So that can actually be more interesting in that regards, okay? All right. So let's go over other things that are actually more significant, something to really focus on, something to really give more of an interesting focus here, right? So imagine like this whole scenario where this little chopping thing that has a soul of its own. And one thing to actually suggest here is like imagine the crazy things to suggest. Like regardless of these homies being created by Delphords, imagine if we get a scenario here is that regardless of them actually being made from this soul sulfur root, they are not inbound to the abilities of the Delphords themselves, right? So say for instance, if Zeus actually managed to eat a Delphord root, he's not he'll affected by the Delphord root, but he's not affected by the rules of like you can't eat 2 Delphods, right? Unless you're Blackbeard, right? So maybe that actually works in a scenario here. So imagine like if the same regards for this little chumpy thing actually, despite having a living soul being Pandora inside it also manages to be more significant and it also eats a Delphord, right? And I'll get into that Delphord root and stuff like that. But one thing to actually go over real quick is this, right? So we all know how Usopp uses these little pop greens like that, and these whole pop greens actually manage to be so much like his main situations, his main his ammunition, his the things that he uses to help him shoot things, right? I'm sure you guys get what I'm trying to say, okay? And then maybe one thing to actually suggest here, another thing to actually go over, is imagine if the Soul of Pandora can actually focus and increase the scenarios of these pop greens even more, right? Maybe even take control of other plant creatures that Usopp has. Like imagine taking control of like the large Venus flytraps that he has, right? The same ones that have like these giant mouths and like that to attack enemies. So maybe taking control of those things and actually giving those more of a sentient life to be a little bit more determined, all right? So maybe something like that can actually work, okay? And another one to actually look at here is also the Green Star Impact Wolf, right? It's basically like the giant wolf sort of like made of grass, right? So imagine like a scenario where because Pandora has basically become part of this little soul creature thing, this little prank creature thing, whenever the whole grass wolf comes out and like that, maybe taking control of this giant wolf, and maybe this wolf actually becomes more inflamed. It becomes more of a flaming grass and like that. That is sort of like delivering more of like a monstrous form to it, right? And maybe that's a good way to actually tie in a general idea on Usopp probably. Usopp, say for instance, like having something to actually make a reference to Fenrir in Norse mythology, right? Maybe that's a good way to actually throw in there, right? However, another idea I want to focus here on Fenrir is this: is like imagine, like I was saying, if these if characters like Zeus or even like this little plant creature thing with this homie soul can actually manage to eat a Delphord. If that's the case, then imagine if it gets like the Fenrir thing and it's actually able to transform into Fenrir, becoming a monstrous giant plant creature or based off of Norse mythology, more in tone with the idea of having the Inu no Mi model Fenrir, right? So maybe something like that can work in that regard, right? So while it is a bit of a strange thing to suggest, it still is a pretty interesting possibility in that regards, right? So those are probably the main things to really focus on in general, right? And the whole situation is that this could actually work very well in Usopp's favor because the whole idea of like this little plant creature thing actually has more of a sentient life here. Imagine a scenario, even if he fires it all off, it can actually control its destination and targets a little bit more efficiently by going off of how Usopp wants it, right? So if Usopp is the one still making the commands here and basically making the suggestion and on where he wants to aim and where he wants to fire. So say for instance, like you have a person here, person there, person over the back, and a person behind you. And imagine if Usopp is basically the one sort of commanding or basically sort of like focusing here on how he wants it done. And if the thing manages to strike the target in the exact same way of how Usopp wants it, then maybe that can actually work. And not to mention, one thing to actually point out here is that when it comes to Usopp and his whole sniping skills basically not only rely on the sense of him being a sniper, but also the idea of him having enough things to actually do the sniping skills with, right? Because that's literally something to look at here, is that if he runs out of like stuff to use and he's not able to do anything else with it, especially if he runs out of like his main things, like his main pop greens that he mostly uses, and he has no more of that, and he does constantly grow the pop greens as much as possible here, but that still isn't going to work here. So really doing something to really upgrade that to where even if he runs out of pop greens, he always has another way to fight. He always has another interesting thing to suggest here, right? I mean, unless he wants to just take this his Kuro Kabuto and just smack the enemy across the head. I mean, that could still work as well, right? I mean, so hey, who knows what the craziest things might be, right? And I will say this and stuff like that, just to be very clear here and stuff like that, even though not everybody has said this, I know some people have actually suggested it, and I know it is like a small theory here. Some people do actually suggest that, Usopp will probably be willing to actually get a Delph Root, and he'll find like a Brave Warrior of the Sea. I really don't want that to be the case, right? Not because I'm saying that I hate the idea, or it's a terrible, or Usopp can't really do a really good idea with the Delph Root if he plans on doing that. No, the main reason I wouldn't want that to be the case, especially if it's called the Brave Warrior of the Sea Delph Root, the main focus here on that is that when it comes to the character's dreams, I really want the idea of them achieving their dreams on their own focus here, right? Not literally, side ride it and basically just have Usopp come across a Delph Root called the Brave Warrior of the Sea and suggest to make it say, well, I finally achieved my dream. I'm Brave Warrior of the Sea. It's like, well, no, that's literally not how it should be, right? And when it comes to a scenario like that, we, the readers, know and believe that Usopp is going to become Brave Warrior of the Sea, right? It's the same thing with Luffy in that regard, right? We believe and know that Luffy is going to become King of the Pirates, right? And even when you look at it here, Luffy himself is in the same regards as us. Like, even where he believes and knows that Usopp is going to become a Brave Warrior of the Sea, right? And the main situation here is looking at Usopp, where Usopp does feel like he's probably the one who doesn't actually fully comprehend or fully believe that he is going to become Brave Warrior of the Sea. And maybe that's actually something to focus here, is that one thing that this Elbaph arc can actually give for us is actually give us a moment where Usopp basically understands not only what a Brave Warrior means in general, but why he is the one who's basically going to become a Brave Warrior, right? And that's sort of like a missing piece of the puzzle that Usopp probably doesn't really have. Like, yeah, he gets the idea that these giants are very brave warriors, but maybe he doesn't quite understand himself or fully believe himself that he can become a brave warrior, right? He wants to become a brave warrior, but there's still a part of him that probably doubts it, and he probably doesn't understand, and that he needs to actually fight that back. He basically needs to stand up against that and basically understand very well, so we, the readers, can stand up with joy and basically yell, "Hooray, Usopp! God Usopp! Yeah!" So really thinking about it, it's like that. It's really more of a significant idea, right? Literally doing something to help Usopp achieve something to better aim or better focus on what actually makes him stronger, or is a little bit more interesting in that regards, right? And who knows? Maybe this scenario can actually work in Usopp's favor, or because, say, for instance, like his whole tall tale thing, maybe this whole situation here, to where this whole flame thing, like this whole Cindy and Tomy taking control of this little plant creature for his Kabuto might actually be a more significant thing to focus on how he's actually going to do things, right? Maybe it's a little bit more direct, a little bit more interesting, and something to really focus on, right? All right. Alright, so that's all I have for the video. That's everything I really wanted to discuss. There's nothing else to basically go over and basically state. Thank you so much for joining me. If you liked today's video, if you liked anything I discussed on the Usopp at all, please let me know in the comment section below, alright? Feel free to hit notification bells, subscribe to the channel. It really helps me out like that. I really want my videos to increase, and if you're enjoying the videos, you should subscribe to the channel, alright? If you think this video is good and you feel like other people need to see it, go ahead and share, alright? Do whatever you need to do, and like that, but if you did enjoy the video, just like the video, feel free to leave a comment, alright? Do whatever you need to do, alright? So, once again, thank you so much, and you all have a great day. And once again, alright, I am not Usopping here, okay? I literally did manage to find out from Oda personally what he plans to do with Usopp during the Elbaph arc, okay? I swear, right? It is the honest truth, alright? I'm not Usopping! I'm being serious! Well, fine then. Don't believe me.